Welcome back to Movie Rewind. Today I will recap for you a biography, drama, thriller film from 2011 titled Puncture. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Houston, Texas. Mike Weiss is a young, eccentric personal injury attorney. Also a narcotics addict, Mike spends half his time partying at a rundown motel, where he prepares for trial using his junkie friends as mock jurors. His friend and business partner, Paul Danziger, is Mike's polar opposite, straight-laced, and happily married to his pregnant wife. With a partnership dating back to the high school debate team, they have gone on to become Danziger and Weiss, an ambulance-chasing law firm struggling to keep the lights on. In spite of his drug habit, Mike is a talented legal mind and courtroom litigator, having recently earned a settlement for his client after the fire department sent trucks with broken water pumps. Amongst the guests at their post-trial celebration is friend and fellow attorney Daryl, who outsources some of his firm's work to help Mike and Paul make ends meet. Daryl confirms they are meeting his latest referral, a local emergency room nurse and single mother of two, Vicky Rogers. 3 years ago, Vicky's hospital admitted a male patient who was hyped up on PCP. The patient was uncooperative, and Vicky was inadvertently pricked by a contaminated needle, which she would later learn transmitted the HIV virus. After hearing Vicky's story, and confirming that she has been receiving workers' comp, Paul explains that unfortunately, that is all she is entitled to under the law. Vicky, however, isn't seeking compensation for herself. Her friend invented a retractable safety needle that would protect the thousands of frontline safety workers who have similar accidents each year, but the hospitals strangely refused to adopt it. Mike convinces his partner to take a meeting with the inventor, Jeffrey Dancourt. Jeffrey had been working as a structural engineer when Vicky's accident occurred. After learning that it was not an isolated incident, Jeffrey quit his job and spent the next year developing the product, which would later be named Safety Point. After receiving a grant from the National Institute of Health, Jeffrey's needle went into production, and was first used at San Antonio Memorial Hospital, where they went 2 years without a single needle stick incident. Despite the stellar result, Jeffrey approached and was denied by 2,000 hospitals, without any concrete explanation. Mike begins looking into the potential claim, and discovers that 800,000 frontline healthcare workers are jabbed every year in the United States alone, and accidental needle sticks are the leading risk factor in the transmission of HIV and hepatitis B and C, amongst that group of the population. He meets with several hospitals' purchasing departments, and has the same experience that Jeffrey had reported. He is turned down or asked to leave, without the product ever being considered. In brief, the healthcare facilities are represented by group purchasing organizations or GPOs, who sign exclusivity deals with certain manufacturers in exchange for kickbacks and other perks. Paul agrees that the case has merit, but Jeffrey can't afford a retainer, and they don't have the resources to support a prolonged legal battle. Mike persuades him to accept the case by promising to bring on another firm, if and when it becomes necessary to do so. A meeting is set with one of the largest NGOs in the country, United Medical Health Supplies. Mike is running late, so Paul and Jeffrey start the proceedings without him. United boasts a lineup of heavyweight attorneys, led by accomplished litigator Nathaniel Price. Paul and his client are suing United for multiple violations of antitrust law. The allegations in their complaint include bribing healthcare facilities under the veil of political contributions, buying syringe manufacturers then jacking up the product price. They even ran a smear campaign in a local newspaper. Nathaniel discloses that any hopes of settling the case are completely out of the question, as it would open the floodgates for lawsuits against his client. Just then, Mike abruptly wakes in the United Medical parking garage. He had arrived for the meeting more than an hour early, but used the extra time to get high and consequently fell asleep in the car. Mike hurriedly grabs his stuff and rushes inside to the conference room, only to find that the meeting has concluded by the time he gets there. Since settlement was already ruled out, the case progresses to the discovery phase, and Mike appears in court to present oral argument regarding the production of document requests Nathaniel objects to. With Vicky watching intently, the judge's rulings predominantly favor the defendant, disheartening Mike and Paul, who felt that precedent supported their position. Outside the courthouse, renowned attorney Mark Lanier is surrounded by reporters, having just been awarded a $53 million verdict, and Mike briefly considers trying to add Mark to their team. That evening, Mike returns home to find that his estranged wife has taken all the furniture and moved out of the house, leaving only a note demanding he sign the divorce papers. Mike's personal struggles are compounded by his wife leaving, sending him in search of a bar where he can drink his sorrows away. He treats his boots to a fresh shine and comes across an ad for a by-the-minute sex therapist, who he calls and professes his loneliness to. The downward spiral continues when Mike borrows company funds to pay for market research at a seminar for healthcare devices, and forgets to reimburse the account, causing the company health insurance policy to lapse. Now at wit's end, Paul goes to discuss dropping the safety point case, but gets interrupted by Senator O'Reilly calling from Washington, D.C. The senator has been a longtime advocate of hospital worker safety, and considers Jeffrey's safety needle a breakthrough innovation worth lobbying for. Mike is kept privately after the meeting, at which point Senator O'Reilly offers her support predicated on Mike dropping the case and allowing another firm to take over. His cocaine use is obvious, and precludes him from presenting to any lawmakers, but Mike says no other firm was willing to take the case, nor could his client afford it, and he promises to get himself cleaned up. Days later back in Houston, Vicky's health continues deteriorating and she eventually succumbs to her illness. Meanwhile, Mike struggles to keep his promise to the senator and begins experiencing the side effects of drug withdrawal, heavy sweating, irritability, and vomiting, culminating in a hallucination of Vicky expressing her disappointment in him. After missing the safety point investor presentation, Mike is found unconscious on the bathroom floor and rushed to the hospital, where he is diagnosed with inflammation of the heart valves and lining, liver disease, pulmonary distress, and the onset of pneumonia, all resultant from years of drug abuse. The next day, feeling better and eager to get back on the case, Mike checks himself out of the hospital and makes an appearance on the local news alongside the head of the Nurses Association. The enthusiasm is short-lived, however, as Nathaniel saw the broadcast and also turns up the heat. Multiple calls to Senator O'Reilly go unanswered, and San Antonio Memorial cancels their safety point contract, after the CEO was invited to join United Medical's board of directors. Mike is then notified that Senator O'Reilly has decided to table the safety needle issue, after United made a generous donation to her re-election campaign. No longer concerned about losing the senator's backing, Mike is sent into a tailspin. He meets up with the sex therapist and resumes his drug habit. To make matters worse, Daryl's firm forbids him from outsourcing work to Danziger and Weiss so long as they're on the safety point case. Soon after, Mike and his client are invited to an informal meeting at Nathaniel's home, where they are welcomed by his assistant to a lavish estate. On behalf of a client, Thompson Needle, Nathaniel presents a generous offer to purchase Safety Point in its entirety, including the patent. Jeffrey, who set aside a lucrative career to get his product into hospitals, finds the proposal offensive and walks out. Nevertheless, the offer stands for 72 hours, and Paul believes they should encourage Jeffrey to accept it. Mike immediately pushes back, and Paul pulls the car over to argue his point. Now yelling, he questions Mike's motivations, asking whether or not Mike even cares if the needles get used. The firm is on the verge of bankruptcy, no one is willing to work with them, and even if they would prevail in a jury trial, it will be years before anyone sees a dime. Mike calls Paul a coward and gets out of the car to walk home, but he is later stopped by a friend of Vicky's named Red, who claims to have information valuable to the case. Red, a former employee of Thompson Needle, explains that up until the 1960s syringes were made of glass, and sterilized by hospitals using heat. When other companies began switching to the more cost-effective plastic material, the company founder, James Thompson, refused to follow suit because plastic cannot be sterilized the same way. Years later, James Thompson died, and Thompson Needle switched to plastic, which became a major factor in HIV and hepatitis C spreading throughout less developed areas like West Africa. According to Red, Thompson Needle not only had knowledge of this happening, they willfully suppressed the evidence. Mike takes the newfound information and spontaneously drives to Nathaniel's house in the middle of the night. After some coffee and a philosophical conversation about legal ethics, Nathaniel reveals that Jeffrey already changed his mind and accepted the offer, but Mike isn't finished. He pledges to scour the country, find every person affected by an accidental needle stick, and tell them a product exists that could have prevented it, but that product was buried by Thompson Needle. Mike then gets in his car to leave, and he's followed away by an unidentified vehicle. The next morning, Paul arrives at the office as normal. Although Mike hasn't arrived yet, the receptionist reports that there's an incoherent message from Mike on their voicemail. Paul goes to the house and finds it roped off with police tape. According to the detective, Mike died in his sleep. Devastated, Paul goes to the wall and sees the case notes and loose newspaper clippings. He regrets their final conversation being an argument and realizes that Mike truly cared about the case. Paul takes the Thompson Needle tape before leaving and notifies Jeffrey of Mike's passing. Soon after, back in the same conference room, Paul joins Jeffrey at Nathaniel's office, but this time with his own collection of attorneys. Nathaniel is amused by the display, until Mark Lanier also joins, and says he looks forward to taking the case to trial. In 2004, Attorney Mark Lanier settled the lawsuit against one of the nation's largest group purchasing organizations and its medical supply manufacturers for over $150 million. As a result, thousands of hospitals throughout the United States now use safety needles. Authorities determined that Mike Weiss's death resulted from a drug overdose. No further investigation was pursued. Paul Danziger continues to practice law in Houston, Texas. Many hospitals continue to use conventional syringes, resulting in accidental needle sticks and deaths. In poor countries, the plastic syringe still gets reused hundreds of times and is responsible for millions of new HIV infections each year. Okay guys, thank you for watching. Please leave a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to see more.